funny as it used to be, right? All right, we are live. Go ahead. Lead the way.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Dan Sisek. I'm acting host for us again. We are in the book Whatever Arises. Love that. A Love Revolution That Begins With You by Matt Kahn. This is the book. We're still in chapter 4. We got a little ways through. We're at the part called Psychological Cocoon. And I'm not sure who's reading for us this morning. So Catherine's not going to be able to because she might have to jump off, right? So Jason, would you mind reading for us? And before we get started on that, let everybody jump out and introduce themselves.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's good to have everybody on this morning. I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl, broadcasting to you from beautiful, crispy, cold Indianapolis, Indiana. And I know Catherine is on with us as well. She's in the middle of a what'd she call it? A snow-a-cane? A blizzard-a-cane? And I think that she's got some background noise. So I'm not sure if you can jump out or not, but I think she said she wasn't going to be able to. So I'm introducing her today. Yep. Okay.
This is Angel Studebaker down here in South Carolina.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Jason from Tampa Bay, Florida, and my heart goes out to you, Catherine, and stay safe and warm. Good to see everybody this morning. Glad to be here.
Your sound is a little bit low, Jason. I don't know if there's something that you can do about that. I mean, I can always edit in the final to make you louder, but if there's anything you can do for now.
There you go. Is that better? Is that okay? I can turn it up a little bit further.
Thumbs up. You're good.
Okay. And where are we starting today?
We're on page 72 in the book. I'm not sure about Scribd. That's also another way of how you can get the book. I think that's a subscription. I'm not sure. I think Catherine uses that when she's reading. But it's, I guess, similar to like Kindle, but not as costly or whatever. And it's an app that you can use and you can download, I guess, so many books from it and stuff like that. So you have that option you can use if you want to join us with that. I don't know how those pages line up compared to the book, but we're on page 72 and it says a Psychological Cocoon.
Okay, yeah, the Psychological Cocoon. Nervous systems become overstimulated in order to create a psychological cocoon. As the butterfly of your innocent nature incubates throughout the earliest years of your life, you gain personal experiences in preparation for deeper adventure. Whether the process begins in adolescence or spontaneously unfolds in adulthood, the cocoon of incubation fulfills its mission by flaking apart through the impulse of spiritual evolution. If the purpose of the ego is to fall apart, then everything in life occurs as critical stages of development in order to usher a greater cosmic reality into view. It's important to remember that those who haven't had flashes of transcendence aren't missing out on or left behind in any way. They are just in the process of unraveling the cocoon of ego to the point where a more profound reality can be acknowledged. Even for those who have experienced spontaneous flashes of realization, only to feel as if these experiences faded away or were somehow lost. The nervous system is simply returning to well-established patterns of conditioning. This can almost feel like you're going backward in evolution, as if everything that was inexplicably clear when realization dawned has returned to the way things were before you began your spiritual path. While these types of experiences can feel quite disheartening, they offer you vital feedback from your nervous system, confirming that while you may have experienced a vacation from the human condition, the patterns of overstimulation have not been fully released out of your energy field. If you were unaware of the role the nervous system plays, you might take this personally or feel like you are failing your spiritual mission. On the other hand, once you recognize the overstimulated nervous system as the means through which life's clearest view is obscured, you travel even deeper into the grace of your journey. The further you go, the more the nervous system unravels, which gives your body permission to rest. This causes the cocoon of ego to conditionally flake apart as your heart flowers open.
Do we want to continue to the next part, or do you guys want to talk about this a little bit? Any thoughts?
I think we can keep on going.
Okay.
Okay, the next chapter is how does overstimulation happen? To help you understand more about how the nervous system becomes overstimulated in the first place, let's consider behavior of babies. First, you may notice how they are already living in a state of pure consciousness. In such a state, they are constantly adjusting to sensations of a brand new world. Every time an unrecognized possibility enters the energy field of a baby, they tend to cry. Crying doesn't necessarily suggest an experience of pain or upset, but the function of the nervous system clearing unrecognized possibilities out of the cells of the body. In your pure state of being, sensory experiences come into your field and are immediately reflected back out into the natural rhythm. Each time this occurs, the subconscious mind is recruited to work as a recorder of patterns. Its role is to constantly track trends in your energy field while looking for ways to reduce the workload of the body. This is done so the life force energy within your field can function at its highest level of efficiency. Imagine a baby hears an unfamiliar sound. The sound waves immediately pass through the energy field of the baby, whose nervous system reflects it back out spontaneously. It's almost as if the baby cries to match the sound it hears. This causes the subconscious mind to notice that every time a wave is reflected out, the energy expenditure spikes. Because a baby is going to constantly respond to some experiences as unfamiliar or foreign, its subconscious mind tracks how often these spikes appear. The more often a baby responds to the multi-sensory nature of life, the more nervous system steps into reflect it back out. This causes more energy spikes to be registered by the subconscious mind. Eventually, the subconscious mind makes a decision. Since the energy keeps spiking so often, why not make the highest point of each spike the newly conditioned state of the energy field? This decision is made so that less energy is expended, spiking up and going all the way back down to life's natural state of being. As a spiking of energy establishes a new conditioned state of being, your natural state is obscured as your perception of life becomes exaggerated. This invites a world of polarity or opposites. that are seen through a lens of distortion. In a world of polarity, instead of being aware of the things you see, everything is labeled and defined in comparison to other things. From this point of reference, the miracle, the miracle of existence becomes an idea called life. This is how your true nature becomes lost in the main character of a play. Throughout each scene, the innocence of your being loses touch with reality through daunting and complicated patterns of survival, and is often overwhelmed by constant states of alertness, during which the threat of deficiency and disappointment become outcomes that you regularly anticipate. This is also when the deep-rooted sense of feeling separate from love enters your reality.
I think this is a good spot to stop. And so, any thoughts on either psychological cocoon or how does overstimulation happen?
I don't know. I think that it's interesting how they reference a baby and how a baby kind of comes into this world not knowing anything. Everything's coming at the baby, and the baby has to cry to expel the excess energy. And that kind of reminded me of like what a dog, for instance. When a dog is overly agitated, because they have too much energy, the only way to get that energy out is to, run them out, take them for a run or chase the ball or whatever it is. And then once they expel that excess energy, then they're able to be calm again. And I never really thought about that with babies. I mean, I knew that, as a baby, obviously everything is new. And so there is a constant stimulation that is obviously being, all this input into the baby's mind and sensory perception and all of that. And, and some babies obviously are much more sensitive to that than others because they are, some of them cry a whole lot more than other babies. And so that's just really interesting. I guess a way of just kind of thinking about it. And then when, we get older, when, it's like what stress is basically, we've got too many things going at the same time, and or we have a lot of pressure on us for whatever is going on. And so that causes a feeling of overstimulation. And then, like it was talking about, as we kind of get this idea of, when everything is going chaotic, and it's that way for a long period of time, as we kind of just adopt that as the new norm, not ever really getting back to a calm state of being. So we're constantly stressed and constantly agitated or upset or emotionally roller coaster or whatever it is. And I can definitely see how all of those things play together to cause us distress in many different ways, which, I mean, is why a lot of people, or a lot of, everybody kind of talks about, or not everybody, but we've learned a lot about, meditation to clear the mind of all these distractions. And we've learned also, about exercise does the same thing. It helps to expel that excess energy. But I really never thought about it in terms of a way of getting the overstimulation out of the body, like it is an excess of energy, versus I just was like, I don't know, I run, or, well, I don't run, but, I do exercise, Tai Chi or something like that. And that helps me to focus, and breathing exercises and whatnot help me to focus or help me to feel better. But yeah, I never thought of it as a way to expel the negative or the overstimulated levels of energy. So kind of interesting.
I like the part where, when he was talking about babies, and he says, first, you may notice how they are already living in a state of pure consciousness. And that's, in some ways I see it, in other ways I don't, because it's, to me, kind of paradoxical, or I don't know if I'm saying that right, but because in a way, yes, I guess they have to work out of pure consciousness because everything is, it's in a way new, but I go back to a lot of what we've learned over the course, that I don't think anything is really new to us. It's just in the matter of what the state we're in. Because if I go back to what we've been, being told from some of these other books, where they say we know about all these things beforehand, or we're part of the universe, or part, of God, as I look at it, part of God from even before. So I think some of it's there. It's just that in this new realm of being in the human body, it's almost like we kind of have to relearn what we already know, or are working towards getting back to that point. And I think part of why I'm thinking this is I was watching a show on Paramount. It's Star Trek Discovery. It's one of the another new versions, but in it they had I gotta somehow put this in a very short and brief without going. They came across this matter that ended up being an intelligent life force, but it was more conscious than just physical, and it held everything to life and everything. And if it had progressed in a way that it was at that time, based on what I'm understanding from the show, it would have annihilated everything in the universe, and that wouldn't all sentient life essentially would no longer exist. So they had to find a way of how to protect that, intelligence, but still somehow keep it from wiping out all sentient life that it was going to try to. And so they went through all this stuff, but then eventually they had it in their ship's system for safekeeping, and integrated into the ship's system, and somehow formed a consciousness, and then started to realize its own value and its own worth, and had come to a point where it no longer really wanted to hurt, but rather be part of everything that's going on. But it was having to learn, because at one point it was just logic, bits and pieces of, so, kind of the opposite of a baby, where a baby you look at a baby, and I think they have logic in them in a different sense, but and so that's how they learn, is by crying and learning reactions to all these things. And then, like the book says, we build these, flake off the other layers, but put these new layers on, is how we interact and handle things. Well, this force, or this life exists, intelligence, call it, it was finally starting to develop emotions and feelings, and I was trying to understand those. And so I kind of see, now that's where I see the correlation with the baby. A baby has these feelings, pain, when discomfort and all that. But then the only way they know how to respond is crying. Well, it kind of, like this, it was learning how to react. And so, but dealing with the emotions that it was dealing with. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this. I don't see how, I think we're just continually flicking off everything that we're trying to learn and get a better understanding. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on so long, but I'm just trying to get that whole thought process put together.
I'll go ahead and jump out real quick. I I found it interesting that like you said, brings up the baby experiencing life for the first time, and so I noticed also in the previous chapter it talks about how that as we develop this overstimulated nervous system, we're developing our ego. Um, so in a way that babies are automatically like creating this ego for themselves at such an early age. Um, but that it seems like it's a natural thing that we do to reflect the stimulus back out from ourselves that we experience in the world. And we're just, from that very earliest of time, we are just looking for a way to express ourselves. He only mentions a baby crying, but not all babies cry at everything they see. They giggle, they just look with wonderment also when they hear a sound. It's not always the same reaction of crying. And you do hear about some babies being more, some babies being easier and some babies being more difficult. So I wonder if there is when that somehow there is a built-in mechanism, or that when we come into these states of being, we are pre imprinted with a way to react, or if it is just a pureness like none other. I don't know, but those were some thoughts I had.
Catherine posted a couple of comments in our in meeting chat here. She says, I think one of the reasons for overstimulation is because we hold everything in. That's yeah, I completely agree with that. A lot of people do that. And then she says, babies are smart. Yeah, babies are like animals. They see angels and respond to energy. They are very open until they're trained that is all in their imagination. I think that, well, Angel, you had an experience with this with Connor when he was young, in the house that you were living in up there in Ohio, where he seemed like he was seeing something. You want to talk about that?
Well, it was more of me experiencing it. He was still fairly little. He was still baby when we were still up there and kind of experiencing it. But we had a ghost that lived in the upstairs of our house. But he was very, very docile. All we really hear from him is him walking around upstairs and then coming up and down the stairs. He seemed to really hang out on the stairs for the upstairs and then the stairs down in the basement. He never really came onto the floor that we were actually currently living on, which was nice, except for a couple of times he'd, flicker with the lights and mess with the lights, because the house was fairly old. I don't know exactly how old, but it was still when it was just slats and plaster for insulation behind the drywall. A really old house. And so I don't know. He was a nice ghost. But yeah, he'd make all the lights flicker because we had those old button light switches. So all the wiring was really old. He'd, mess with those a little bit. Tyler, he really didn't like it. He'd get so freaked out. And I thought it was hilarious. I'm like, he's so nice. I'm like, hey, at least he's not, moving shit around and actually on our living area, at least he's upstairs and downstairs. I mean, I can ask for anything better. I mean, he just walks up and down the stairs. That's it. And I think there's a couple times that he may have come into Connor's room when he was sleeping, maybe like played with him, because I sometimes hear Connor, talking and, the baby talking and playing with something. And I just sometimes thought it was maybe the cats in his room, but I'm pretty sure there's been a couple times that he came in and he was playing around with Connor, at least talking to him or something, a few times. But yeah, because if I think back, there had been a couple times I'd listen to Connor in his room by himself, talking to himself, perfectly content, just talking away, having a full gibberish conversation with whoever else was in there. But yeah, he was a really nice ghost. Didn't really mess with us. He just liked to walk around and make his presence known a little bit here and there, but that's about it. Fairly nice. I didn't like him. But yeah, that's about it.
Interesting, because I've heard of stories like that and how people have felt that way, and a lot of times you hear it more to the other extreme, that it feels like they're trying to scare them or actively get them to leave or something like that.
That's what I thought, but I think it's also like people's perspectives on it too, of how they were brought up, because his parents are the same way. His parents are like, oh no, it's a ghost, and they just completely freak out. They're just like freaked, and it's just like, it's just, is he actively trying to scare you? No. Is he opening stuff, moving shit, or no? No problem then. He's just chilling. But yeah, anytime the house would go off, I'd be like, it's a ghost!
But I wanted to go back to something that you were saying, Samantha, in the beginning. I can't remember every little bit or whatever, but it made me think about going back again to my Star Trek Discovery. But in one of the instances, they were being attacked or dealing with something, or I can't remember the whole story, but this part is what stuck out, was the computer was having trouble picking up, sensing stuff outside of its own particular being, out there. Like normally, in the Star Trek stuff, the sensors can pick up stuff out there and say, oh, well, you have an object out here, or this is out there, or there's an energy. It was, so this one character kind of asked it to play a game, and then but said, can you still run your normal stuff in the background while you're playing this game with me? And I think we've all done something like this, maybe with the kids or my nieces and nephews or something, when they've been really irritated or agitated or trying to calm them down. You take their focus off of what it was and put it on something else. And then slowly but surely they are either in their head process whatever they're going through or whatever, or even myself, I've done things where I've been so really irritated or something. I said, I got to get my mind off of this. I need to focus on something else and take my focus off of it. And then my subconscious tends to work on it. And then I can get to a point where, okay, I either get settled or find a way to deal with it, or, say, okay, that's what it is, and just move on. So I focus on something else. And that's what, but I think that's, what we tend to do is, needing ways to kind of redirect that attention. And I think that's what this is, some of what this is trying to say in these two little sections is, we forget how to act in the pure consciousness. And I think if we can try and get back to that, and that might be in those moments where we're just opening ourselves up, and even though we might be focused on the one little area, but allowing the other area to process and go through and handle what it needs to without being actively engaged in it, that's how we can maybe get to that pure consciousness and come to resolution to where we can move forward, rather than being in that constant state of, okay, what, kind of, how do I respond? How do I react? What do I do? And I think there are times where people can't do that and they're just stuck. And that might be when they're really lashing out, or really, lashing out at everybody else, because they don't know what else to do, and they don't know and they can't get to some sort of reconciliation or answer or whatever they need out of that. So that was my last other little bit.
Yeah, I think we get into those states sometimes, you know, we have all these different things coming at us and we can't figure out the solution to the problem, or, you know, we're just stressed out or whatever it is. And then we get into this kind of mode where we're spiraling in our thoughts about, okay, what do I do? How do I do it? How do I deal with the situation, etc. Or we're trying to be really controlling, you know, like we're trying to control the outcome of something. And you know, we've done all this work and we put these things together and things aren't going the way that we want. We're just working so hard to control the situation, and you know, or we have other things that are trying to control us in some way, shape, or form, and we feel like we're stuck in some way. And but how many times, I mean, have we heard of people, or we've experienced for ourselves, you know, that we just stop thinking about whatever the problem is and focus on something else, whether it's going for a walk or doing some exercise of some sort, or you know, reading a book, or talking to another person, or doing a puzzle, or taking a shower, or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden when you're focused on something completely different and you've kind of put this other thing out of your mind, then all of a sudden you have this idea pop in your head and you're like, light bulb moment, you know, and all of a sudden you have the solution, or, you know, or you can figure out the path that you need to take instead. And so, I mean, I completely get this whole concept of being overstimulated in so many different ways. And you know, I mean, we've learned over the years a number of different things that we can do it, but I think the biggest key is recognizing when it's happening, because if we're not recognizing it, then how do we know to take a step to do something different? You know, and that's what the kind of the key is, that when you're so overwhelmed or stressed out or overstimulated or whatever, is really the key is to take a step back from it and allow, like what Dan was saying, your subconscious mind to work on it, and quit trying to, you know, be in such control over it, because we can't see all of the possibilities, whereas our subconscious can see more than what we can. I mean, if we trust that our subconscious or our higher self, or all of that is actually connected to the greater picture, and that our human selves, this ego self, is it can only see so many things. We kind of have this kind of tunnel vision happening. Even though we have all the stimulus, we have this tunnel vision, and we have to take that and allow for our other part of ourselves, our bigger spiritual subconscious or higher self, to work on the problem, or allow it to speak to us, because we've got so much mumbo jumbo going on in our heads that we can't even allow ourselves to hear what is trying to be communicated to us. So, yeah.
After going to what you were talking about, it took me to this little paragraph in here on page 74, where it says, imagine a baby hears an unfamiliar sound. The sound wave immediately passes through the energy field of the baby, whose nervous system reflects it back out spontaneously. It's almost as if the baby cries to match the sound it hears, or in other cases, maybe laugh or giggle or, you know, squeal, you know, things like that. This causes the subconscious mind to notice that every time a wave is reflected out, the energy expenditure spikes. And because the baby is going to constantly respond to most experiences, unfamiliar, foreign, its subconscious mind tracks how often those spikes appear. The more often a baby responds to the multisensory nature of life, the more the nervous system steps in to reflect it back out. And I'm wondering if, like, now it's, you know, getting into my age where I'm 58, where I've gotten so many tracks and so many layers and so many things have become so that I don't go back and look at it from a more I don't want to use innocent, but a more pure, because I think we tend to put these things in categories based on like what he was saying, oh, I've been in this similar situation, so let me respond this way, rather than realizing that it's maybe a new sensory, just veiled in something that seems similar to something in the past. So we just go back rather than really truly experiencing what it is for what it is. So that way we can then experience that new sensory issue that we're going through and go back to the vibrations and energy that we put out and receive to respond back to it. And I think that's sometimes why maybe when we respond to things, sometimes it makes the situation worse because we're responding because we responded before, rather than realizing that this is really truly new and unique and a more organic situation. And so therefore we respond that way instead of the way that really needs to be truly looked at, to respond with the true and ultimately matching energy to send that back out. And I think bringing back love, his overarching theme of love being the one thing I think that can match everything, and we forget that to respond more from that point rather than matching it just head on with what we're feeling right at that moment.
Yeah, like it says on page 69 in the second paragraph, everything you encounter, including your worst enemy, your most dramatic experiences, and even the ego itself, must be met with openness, compassion, and care in order to come into contact with the wisest teachings of the universe. And so it's as if our need to make sense and to match everything to our previous perceptions, that limits us itself, kind of like even like our growth of understanding or our perception of what reality is actually limits us because we tend to stop being open to the possibilities. And that's what I'm kind of gathering from it.
Yeah, I kind of had this thought. Oh, sorry, Jason. Thought you were done.
I am. I was just posing the question how open we are to new beliefs.
Yeah, I was thinking, whenever we encounter a person, or anytime we encounter anything, after you're not a young person anymore and everything seems like you've experienced it in some way, shape, or form. Because when you're little, you haven't experienced a whole lot, right? So you still have some level of openness to some things, and but as you get older, you feel like, oh, okay, I've seen this before. This has happened before. This, obviously, there's so many things. A person comes in front of you, and you kind of automatically have this idea of what you think is going to happen, given the situation, and so we kind of are already trying to control it by assuming we know what it is, what is going to happen, etc. And but what if we didn't? What if everything that we came into contact with, we were able to just kind of clear our mind and allow whatever it was to happen and not try and figure it out, like anytime that, there was I was watching this silly TV show last night, and this guy, he was like really into this girl, and she sent him a message, and at the end of the message she put a happy face, and he immediately was like, what does that mean? what does a happy face mean? I mean, I'm sitting here thinking you send a happy face because you're smiling when you say whatever it was you said, right? Well, that's my idea of what it is, but his was like, oh shit, does that mean something? And so he's trying to figure it out, and we do that with everything. No matter what it is, the sun's out, and we're like, oh, that means I'm gonna have this feeling of happiness about the sun, and we literally are controlling every little response that we have, rather than just strictly, what if we just kind of don't, just kind of look at it like it's a new experience, like we haven't ever experienced this before, and what does this mean, and not try and figure it out, and just be like open to whatever comes. What would that feel like? I'm curious. I don't know. The next time we have an interaction with a somebody in our life, we'll just listen and open ourselves up to whatever, and would that be a new experience? What would that feel like?
I tend to feel like we try to put things into, try to compare things with our previous experiences in order to save ourselves some energy. And I would think that relearning and re-experiencing every aspect of life, anytime there's something that is even similar to other things that we've experienced, would be rather exhausting to look at everything with fresh new eyes all the time, and not reference it to anything else, but as if everything is like everything is a brand new subject, even though we've experienced the subject many times again or before. So I think maybe we do that.
People would be weirded out by it if we're just sitting here, every time we have a new conversation with somebody, and they're like saying whatever, expecting us to have whatever reaction, and then we just don't react. I think that, what are you, not even listening to me?
Yeah.
I was going to quickly jump out. I'm sorry, Jason, are you done?
I was just thinking that with how you encounter someone saying something sometimes, and you're not sure where they're going with the statement, and so you do kind of, at least for me, sometimes I look at them kind of like blankly, because they'll make a statement and I'm not sure if they're saying it's a good thing or a bad thing or indifferent. So I'm waiting for them to make their point, and I probably make them feel exactly like Samantha had just mentioned. That's all. Go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. I was going to say, but two things. One, to your point, there have been times when I've had people do that to me, and I tend to, sometimes after a minute or two, if I'm not getting anywhere, I will just look at them and say, and your point is, or what are you trying to get to? So that way I can respond, because I'm, don't want to necessarily sit there and look at them with a blank stare, but like, help me, give me more, so that way I can respond. But, then that's being a programmed response there, because I'm, trying to get something, so I can then go back to my catalog of responses, say, oh yeah, let me respond this way. But the other point I wanted to make is, for me, I don't know how it is but I love like babies and toddlers and stuff. I love interacting with them, and I love getting down to that level and seeing and trying to go back and see things through their eyes, and the wonder, and sometimes the enjoyment they get out of a new discovery, where they're exploring and they're saying, and they find out about this or find out about, and sometimes the wonder and the joy, I think we forget to do that for ourselves as we're even older, to go in and, lose some of that weighted stuff that we have been carrying around with us, but go back with new, fresh eyes and see things fresh again, and say, let me take a different look at this. Let me try and experience this from a different angle or a new angle, or, with fresh eyes. And so sometimes I love being around babies and toddlers because it helps me go back to that state. And even if it's me remembering a little bit of what it was like to play with, because like when I was little, me and my sister, we would both play with my Tonka trunks and stuff and things like that out in the dirt, building roads and stuff. But we all also play, Ken and Barbie and do that, and and then all the things, and experiencing new things and new aspects, and going back, and the joy and the fun of learning that and experience it. Sometimes, yes, we go through something scary and, learn we didn't like that, case in point, a lot of, some aspects of my childhood. But in having to go back and relook at some aspects, I've gained new perspectives out of some of why things happened. And because I went back and kind of relooked at it, outside of it, but still with eyes from trying not to be in my perspective, but from the perspective of what the other people are going through, it has helped me gain other insight. And I think that's something that a lot of humanity has lost, that, seeing something that we've seen so many times for the first time again, so to speak. And I think that it could be a way of helping us all to better connect sometimes, if we could go back to that, as best we can, to that pure state of consciousness.
Yeah, being open to new things, even when the experiences seem similar to what we've already previously been through, can lead to a better understanding, and even more happiness in our lives. I've noticed that sometimes I will experience some resistance to an event before, when I know that I'm going to, like, say, have to participate in something. And if it's been something where I've been through it before, and I might feel some resistance to it because I'm already have this preconceived idea of what's going to happen. And I'm the type where I'm like, well, I'm going to get in, I'm going to be at this event, or I'm going to do this thing. So let me be open to it. Let me push aside those preconceived notions, and let me experience this new, and for what it will provide me, rather than sort of filter it through my previous experience, which I feel like would probably cause that the new experience to end up similar to what was my previous experiences. So I feel like I give myself more possibilities when I am able to reject that resistance and be more open. And I think, like what Catherine was saying, she said in the chat, babies are like animals. They see angels and respond to energy, and they are very open until they are actually trained that that sort of thing is their imagination, when it really isn't. But we're trained to start to think of these things that way because we want to make sense of these things, and we have this urge to make sense of our reality, when I think that there is a great possibility that there's many things that we just can't possibly comprehend. And so just the state of being in it and experiencing it, rather than trying to label it, I think that allows us to maybe what they're saying is that it allows us to live more, live life with a higher consciousness, or be closer to that higher consciousness throughout our lives, maybe.
Well, I was going to put it in the chat, but I'll say it here, and I got to get my thought back together on it. Maybe, and maybe now that we're older, or as we've moved on through life, we become, in a way, distrustful of ourselves, and to be open to experiencing those new experiences, because maybe we're afraid of what that might really mean, though, too. And I think that's another big overarching deterrent for us to be willing to go and be more open to those things and stuff like that, because we're basing it off of past experiences and things like that, and the perception that we have accepted to keep us in that psychological cocoon, to keep us, where we're at, where we feel, okay, I'm control here, I'm comfortable, I'm got this nice little bubble around me, but sometimes going back to getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of where you're at, and what, so you can grow and gain more. Sometimes you have to pop that that bubble and that cocoon, or break open that cocoon, to be able to step outside, to be willing to experience more. And sometimes that can lead you to greater discoveries of other things, and maybe teach you more things about yourself too, that you're stronger, more resilient, better able to withstand things, and that you're stronger, or as Samantha said, or just our perspective, and maybe our prejudices too, so that way we can better connect and get back to the highest level, being love, and radiating that back out to put out into the world, so that way we can be, that connection for other people, so that way maybe we can help them in their journey and learn more about themselves, and help us more in our journey, and I've got lots of thoughts going in my head, and I'm not sure where I'm going with them, so I'll stop with that. I like what Catherine put in the chat. She says, I think it's entirely possible that they could be. Thankfully, free will lets us decide how we will think about things. And she says she chooses what feels best, LOL. And sometimes I think we forget that we can make those choices, make those decisions, and what we best need to do for ourselves, I guess, maybe at that moment too.
Yeah, I mean, how much of the time do we choose the other? Do we choose the unpleasant feeling versus the positive feeling? We tend to do that to ourselves. I mean, why do we do that? We don't have to. We don't have to react in a way that causes us discomfort. We don't have to react angry. We don't have to react but we do it. We do that to ourselves. Why do we do that? When we could just react positively to everything. Is that because maybe even that's too much work? I don't know. We get in these kind of like automatic patterns. It's easier to just react the same old way, whatever that happens to be, versus allowing ourselves to react in a way that feels good all the time. I mean, we could. We don't. I don't know.
I think it has to do with our beliefs and how we use our preconceived beliefs as a guidance towards how we're going to react to in future events. And I was just thinking about how it talks about approaching everything from love, and trying to square that with how to deal with when people are affect me with their pure, like, selfish and inconsiderate actions that can be perceived as like either personal attacks or just that don't square with my idea of the way how people should act or be, when they're not approaching their life excuse me, with love and consideration for others. And so it triggers in me not to not act out of love for them, or send love their way, or even to bless myself by sending love out to them through my heart. I have it's as if it's like a knee-jerk reaction from my subconscious to want to be like, hold up, wait, this is not okay, something needs to be done. What am I going to do? And then it's like, alert, red alert, we got and it just puts me in a bad place. And I've just noticed that I've had to I've noticed that it's much that something like that is that it's, I want to say easier, but it's such a quick reaction to go to that red alert stage than it is for me to go to love. And I almost have to, I find myself having to reprogram my subconscious to be like, this, I'm not, what, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm going to let it go. I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to do anything with it, because that is just getting in the way of what I need to be actually focusing on. So instead, what I want from you, subconscious, is to focus on these things and let this go. And it's not a simple switch that corrects itself immediately. So it's kind of like a work in progress, but it has been helping for me to recognize it and to just be like, okay, and I to say let it go and instead refocus on something else. But I think I'm going to have to be able to get through that, and before I can start sending the love out to those people. That's just where my mind went with that. Sorry.
Well, it's interesting, in the chat we were talking a little bit about living life on autopilot, because Catherine brought up teaching her son David how to drive again, and she forgot how all the things that go into learning how to drive, and all the things you do when you older and been driving for 20. Oh, sorry, it's her husband. Sorry, my fault. Back when we were first learning, we had to learn all those things, and now, every day we do it on pretty much autopilot. We get in, we start the car, and sometimes our car, I swear, sometimes my car drives itself. I think, because it feels like, oh, how did I get here? Or, and so with that, but, and it made me think of, having a kill switch, like, on a lot of things like in programs and stuff, you know, they have kill switches to kill a program, or big machinery have a kill switch to, stop the machine from doing something when it starts to, not work right. Well, sometimes I think we have kill switches, but we use them sometimes at the wrong time. We just kind of kill, like something, because we don't want to deal with it and go to that automatic response and go that route rather than keep it, not turning the kill switch on and going through the experience and in that sense, seeing what played out for the pure, seeing out how, so then we can maybe be in that mode of love and sending that out. And I think, sometimes we do it as self-preservation, I guess. And so with that, that just made me think of that, how we were talking about the autopilot. And, I think we all do tend to run our lives on autopilot sometimes and just, use the canned responses and the canned everyday thing. But at the same point, I think we're missing out maybe on those opportunities and those abilities to learn something, to grow into that highest level of love too. So that was just my thought. We're about 10 minutes past the hour, so I don't know if we want to wrap it up or, so if anybody has last thoughts, I'll throw that out and go there.
Yeah, I just want to bring up the event that I think like a vast majority of everyone experienced a while back. It was a social media viral thing that went on in regards to the color of a dress, and people were and in my eyes, the idea was basically that people see things differently. Look at the same exact image and they perceive things differently, and some of that is, I guess, comes from where how we perceived our earliest experiences. And it's been brought up that other times it's like a patterning in our brain, that if we've experienced the pattern of it recently, we're more receptive to it. But I guess the overall idea is to recognize that not everybody sees things the same way, and I guess it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but we need to we need to do what's best for ourselves. And I think not allow ourselves to get caught up in other people's stuff if it's not right for us as well. And that that's not always easy to do, but it's nice to know that there is that option if we're willing to work through it and give it the time, and to recognize that hey, it may just be a perception and it may not truly be the reality. So thank you so much for your time, everyone. Take care, stay warm, be safe out there.
I don't have anything else, so.
Well, I'll throw one last thing. I always seem to have something to say. Makes me think of what's happened over the last couple of years and what's come out of it. One, I think we've experienced a higher sensitivity to mental health, and tying in with that, how they're talking about the great resignation, and a lot of people are quitting jobs that they really have not felt any real, purpose or value, or feel like they're not being valued. And they're starting to realize that, no, I need to value myself and put myself more in the first line of things rather than down because, oh, well, I've got to take care of this, or I have to pay these bills, or I have to do that. I even went through it a little bit myself, back in 2020, because of what I was going through, dealing with a boss that it wasn't the job I hated, it was the nature, and, but I had to finally say, I'm stressed out, I'm having trouble sleeping, I need to do something that's more important for me and my, mental health. So in that sense, I think also coming out of this, what's, brought, on a more human-wide level, and connectivity, we're all understanding a little bit more that, we got to kind of do what's best for us sometimes first, rather than worrying about all the things we worry about, or how am I going to pay this, or how am I going to take that, or what about this, what about that, sometimes. So in that, I think going through similar experiences sometimes can also have a positive effect and open either the population or humanity or segments in certain areas to things that need to be looked at, and it's not just from a singular perspective either. So that's something else I've learned over the last while too, in relation to some of the stuff that's going on with this book. Angel, anything, or are you done? Okay. Well, with that, this has been the Saturday Morning Mastermind. We're in the book Whatever Rises, Love That, A Love Revolution That Begins With You by Matt Kahn. You can get it on Scribd, I think, on our Facebook page. We have information on how you can get to that, and or link below. Also, please share, go to our YouTube channel. You can find us there with all the replays of the live streams there. If you want to join or be a panelist on the, Saturday Morning Mastermind, you can get a hold of one of us and let us know, and we can help you get that. And you can also join us on Facebook. And once again, we're here most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern time, 7 a.m. Pacific. And with that, that's it for the Saturday Morning Mastermind.